So my dears, we're having a heat wave and I just saw 10 patients and I am fried. So we have the right plans here tonight. So we're going to do a little grounding meditation and then I'm going to teach you what you can do with these beauties. Do you know comfrey? It's like Velcro plant. Sticks right on. It's good. There you go. Okay. Karuna's getting a charger. We are going to ground and settle. So just take a moment and find where your seat meets whatever surface is supporting you right now. And just take a deep breath in through your nose. Feel that belly rise. Feel it fill with air. And exhale with noise if you feel moved to do so. Just bring in your breath. Let it fill you up. Let it cleanse you of any of the day's worries or stressors. And exhale with a whoosh and a wave and let it all go. We're just going to be in this moment together because that's really all there is right now. This beautiful moment together with these beautiful women, with these beautiful roses, which I am enamored with. We'll talk about them. And for now, just imagine yourself sitting beneath a beautiful, beautiful rose bush. Gorgeous aroma in the air. There's a heat and heaviness to the air, but the cooling rose energy that you're sitting next to just helps take that heat away. It brings you back, connected to yourself, connected to your heart, because rose medicine is heart medicine. Breathe into that. Breathe into your heart center, knowing the beauty that resides there. And take the lesson of the rose that we must shine, we must flower, share our beauty, our love, our abundance, and we must have good, strong boundaries. Breathe in, knowing where your body ends, where the air around you begins, and knowing that you're resourced to create safe space for yourself, to choose situations and relationships that support your heart, support your inner knowing. Just like the rose has thorns to protect, so do you have your boundaries. Breathe into that knowing. And breathe into the knowing of this plant, comfrey, that we'll be meeting tonight. If you haven't met comfrey, know that that root of a comfrey plant goes deep, 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 deep down into the earth. So now I want to invite you to feel where your feet meet the earth below you. Even if you're inside, even if you're on the 4th story or the 14th story, you can still connect to the earth through your feet. They are your roots. Feel your toes, wiggle your toes, breathe into your toes. Feel the arch, feel the soul. I know that power to connect to the earth and all its beings resides there. And know that comfrey is a plant of deep nourishment and that you have the power to nourish yourself. So thank you for choosing to do that tonight, for being here in this beautiful circle. And go through another cycle of breath at your own pace, and then we'll meet and we will talk about rose and comfrey some more. So, as you all know, I am super passionate about herbal medicine. It is one of my favorite things. This is my happy place to talk about the herbs after a day of virtual sessions with medical stuff. I'm like, ooh, I'm going to pick the herbs for our circle. And it's just so blissful because this is the time of year where there's so much. And what I like to do is have simple ways of preserving the medicine of spring and summer so that come winter, you have that connection, that beauty. So I'm going to start with the rose because I can't seem to put it down. And what I love to do with rose, it's good for burns, it's good for first aid, it's good for skin in general and calming inflammation. So I love to make myself this gorgeous kind of goddessy oil for my skincare. So there's different oils you can use when making an herbal oil, right? And so we're going to do 2 tonight. And I kind of wanted to do a spectrum so that you could get a feel for the different things you could do. Here's some olive oil. That's what we will use for one. And then here's some jojoba oil. Jojoba oil is much lighter and its fragrance is pretty minimal, which really allows for the scent of the plant to be absorbed into the oil, which is what we want with a plant like rose. Comfrey doesn't have much of a fragrance, but rose, on the other hand, especially this rose, which is Rosa rugosa. Rosa rugosa is from the beach. They go on the dunes. So if you've ever been on the beaches, especially on the East Coast, Cape Cod, Montauk, you'll see these, and then they get these huge hips that they look like almost like a small apple. They're so big, and they're just so fragrant. So for me, they always brought me back to the beach. And finally, I just was like, wow, they need to be planted in my garden. So what we're going to do is we're going to make an oil with the roses. I have just this tiny little jar. It's really small. It was from pear, date, and coconut chutney. So it was like a 4-ounce jar. I'm always reusing jars. They're treasures. So all you do, you can make oils, just so you know, you can make oils out of fresh and dried herbs. Dried herbs are maybe a little easier because they're not going to get moldy. And with a fresh plant, there's a lot of moisture in there. So it can get a little moldy. So you want to keep an eye on it. You want to keep it in a dark place. You don't want it to be in too hot a place. You want like a temperature stable place that isn't going to get, much higher than 60 degrees, something like that. I mean, I've done all kinds of experiments, and you can put it in your cabinet and forget about it, and likely it will work out. But I do like to mention that the water content in roses and other fresh plants can make yours go off. So if you want to order dried herbs, if you don't have access to herbs, or if you were to dry herbs and save them and make the oil at another time, that's a very easy way to do it. The only thing is with rose, this fragrance wouldn't be quite as heady as it is right now. And that's what I want. So I'm going to choose to do this, even though I know I'm going to have to be vigilant. So what I did was I went ahead and I went outside, and it's so hot that a lot of the petals are just falling off the rose plant right now. So they were kind of wilted and on the ground already. So I thought, oh, great. They already started the process. Oh my gosh, it's snowing there. Oh, what? Boulder area is so wild with weather. Well, I'm sending you some heat because it's 95 in New York today, and that is crazy. Yeah. So I am just going to take a scissors. I'm going to cut these to bits, but I want to talk because mindfulness in herbal medicine making is always important. So my process was that I went out to the roses and I talked to them. I'm telling you, if anybody ever followed me around during a day, they'd really be like, whoa, she talks a lot to what? I don't know. Is it herself? Is it the animals? Is it the plants? So I was talking to the roses and I was thanking them for their beauty, and told them I was going to start with just the wilted roses, but that I needed to choose a couple to bring in. And I honored them and I thanked them, and I will leave them gifts. And I slept out under them with my husband the other night in our tent because it's like a spring tradition. I like to sleep in my tent by the roses. If I was really hardcore, I would just put up a hammock or just lie on the ground. But it did wind up raining, so I guess the tent was a good call. And I'm just snipping these as I talk, just snipping them up. They're smaller now. I'm going to keep snipping, and I'll show you before I put them in the jar. And
Ashley?
Yes.
Would you snip them also if you were using dried?
I would, because the more surface area that you create in herbal medicine, the more opportunities to interact with what we call the menstruum, which is the liquid. So I would snip them up a little bit just to get some edges. So these guys are snipped. So they're, they're tiny, they're not tiny, but they're not huge. So I'm gonna put those in my jar. And what you wanna do is pack the jar. So I'll go ahead and I'll wind up cutting these other ones that we have too. So I'm just, these petals pull right off. Now, if I was making a tincture or an elixir, I would probably put the thorns in too. Because the thorns, I learned, I used to make rose elixir with just the gorgeous flowers all the time. And then I was like, I'm giving rose elixir as heart medicine for people, often when they're grieving, sometimes as an aphrodisiac. It depends. Rose can do a lot. Rose is heart medicine. So besides its first aid applications, it can really lift a person up and it can really bring them back into their heart. And I realized that, the thorns are an important part of that. So adding the thorns in the medicine is good protection for people. It's really helpful to have the whole picture. But in this place, I'm just going to be putting this on my face. So, and I don't want the thorns. I don't really need that. I just want this soft lushness of the petals. So I'm going to just chop, chop, chop. Again, these ones are a little harder to chop because they're still so fresh. But the smell is gorgeous. It's just such a beautiful, beautiful smell. And I have to tell you, I had gone to this gorgeous ceremony in the woods that some people near where I live put on this weekend. And they're called Circle Creative Collective. And they did this nighttime walk of all these little vignettes. There were people singing. There was music being made, but they were also doing cleansings, otherwise known like in Latino culture and the curanderas in Central and Southern America. They're doing limpias, they call them, is a cleansing. And you can do a limpia with smoke. You can do a limpia with water. The limpias that someone gave me at this beautiful ceremony in the woods was a flower limpia. I think it must have been a peony. They dunked it in water and they did my head and then my neck, and it was beautiful. So I'm thinking that that would be really lovely to do with a rose too. So just ideas for you. And I'm just adding everything. And that's it. That's like all it is. Now I'm taking my jojoba and I'm going to pour my jojoba in, right into the jar. It's just filling up all the spaces. And it's going to be perfect. Wow. It's almost like I planned it. So you could hear that it's like sucking it in. And that's it. Now, every smart herbalist or medicine maker would label this now. I didn't bring my labels in here, but you need to do that because I've forgotten so many times. I'm like, I'll never forget what I put in the pericognate jar. I'm like, what did I put in that jar? So always label. And what I'm going to do, I use this date book. I don't know if I've shown any of you this before because I love it so much. It's a wee moon planner. It's a moon calendar. And I'm going to write that I did this right now, because in 4 weeks, I want to strain it, because the longer you leave that in, the more likely it will get moldy. So I want to keep my eye on it. And if I start to see any mold on the petals or anything, then I might do it a little earlier. But I'm going to say 4 weeks from today. So I'm going to write on Tuesday, the 31st, made rose jojoba oil, so that that's in there. So record keeping is important with that. So yeah, in a month, I'll just pour this. What I will do probably, I like to use like a muslin kind of piece of fabric or some cheesecloth, and then I put that over a funnel, and I'll put like another jar or bowl under. I'll pour it through. I'll get most of the oil that way, but then I can squeeze the rest out with my hands in the muslin bag so that I get whatever's stuck in the rose petals. And then I'll just compost the rose petals and have the medicine. and I'll use it on my face. Especially, it's great in the summer if you get sunburn, because it really does help. It's so cooling. It has such a cooling energy. Or if you have a burn in the kitchen, something like that, it could just bring the heat right down. So rose is really good for making you feel like a goddess. And it's also good for first aid. So that's our rose oil. It looks really pretty in this jar too. So we'll put that there. And then our next one will be comfrey. So this is a comfrey flower. These purple little bellflowers, and these are the baby leaves. And comfrey is really powerful. I also, besides my garden, I also have an orchard, and I plant the comfrey down around the trees because it goes down and mines the nutrients and pulls them up and gives them to the trees. So the comfrey is really powerful in that way, but it does this for us too. It's reparative. So it gives good nutrition. Some people will cook it up and saute it. It had a bad rep for a while that it could be hard on the liver, but really every herbalist I know does eat it. And there was something, it's called pyrazidine alkaloids. If you were to eat it raw every day, it would be dangerous, but cooked, sauteed in broth a couple of times a week, it is really good for digestion. And I will tell you, I have these stories. I think the more time you spend with plants and talk to them, the more you hear the stories of people getting talked to by the plants. And I, about 5 years ago, was having serious digestive issues. And I was sitting in the garden, kind of meditating on what to do. And I swear that comfrey was like, eat me. I was like, oh my gosh, I forgot, of course. So comfrey is really powerful for that internally, but externally, it's a skin healer. It can be pretty aggressive. The root can be aggressive. So like if you had a wound that was not healed completely, you wouldn't want to put it on because it could heal the outside, but not the inside. But the leaf is a much softer, gentler part of the plant. And you can use that for first aid care. So that could be in like a camping first aid kit to make an oil, what we'll do today. And then the second step, once you strain the oil in the way I talked about with the roses, you can make a salve, which is like the same as a lip balm. It's basically adding a solid kind of thing to it. Traditionally, it was beeswax, but you can do other things, like even trying to think what would be a good vegan substitute, because I usually will use a little beeswax. Coconut oil isn't stable everywhere. I don't know, Allison, do you know of something that you could use in a salve? So we can research that if anybody wants to make a vegan salve, but the traditional ratio of a salve is like 1 to 3. So you would do 3 ounces of oil to 1 ounce salve in that ratio. And you could obviously make it much smaller if you didn't want 4 ounces. You could, and 1 to 3 is nice, but if you like it runnier, it could be 1 to 4. And if you like it harder, it could be 1 to 2. So you can play with that, but 1 to 3 is a good starting point if you decide you want to make herbal oil and then carry it on to salve. For now, though, we are going to take our comfrey and we're just going to chop it just the way I did with the roses. I'm just going to do the same thing, but in this case, it will be with olive oil, which is a thicker, kind of more nutritive thing. So you could, when you make an herbal oil, this comfrey one that I'm going to make, I would use in first aid. I would make a salve or I would put it on a cut, but you could drizzle it on a salad. Herbal oil can be used in that way. It doesn't have to be for skincare. So when you're using an olive oil like this, it can absolutely be something that's going to go in your kitchen. And I've done it with coconut oil. I mean, really all the oils are really nice to use. So you can have fun. There's no real rules. There's an herbalist out in California. Her name is Cami McBride. And she's probably in her 60s. She's been an herbalist for a long time. And she sells a course each year on herbal oil making. She gets really into it. And I've thought about taking it, but I just haven't had the chance yet. But if this is something that you're really jazzed up about after just having this little snippet of it, that would be a great next step to learn more about. So here's the comfrey, little pieces, and I'm going to put it in this jar. I think I thought I was going to have more comfrey. So I'll fill it up more later. I'll get a little bit more. But in this case, I would do the same thing I did with the roses and just do that with the olive oil. Pour it in, cover it. But it does do better if you fill it all the way. So I'm either going to go later and get more comfrey, or I'm going to put it in a smaller jar. And I will do the same thing. I will label it. I'll write it in my moon calendar. And you know what's a really good one to do is St. John's wort. Do you all know St. John's wort? Oh, Karuna has some good information. Canuba wax. And I've never heard of Candelilla wax. That's a new one for me. Oh, wait, what did you say, Maria? Can you?
I've heard of that. I think it's calendula.
I'm looking at Karuna.
Wait, let me look at your.
Native to northern Mexico and the southwestern United States, Candelilla wax is an affordable lubricant used in varnishes, lip balms, and lotion bars. Oh, interesting. Okay. So yeah, you could check the chat for those options, Canuba, and this new one that I never heard of, which is probably Candelilla. I'm not sure.
Yeah, that's not what I was thinking of. I just looked at the chat. That's
Maria, we need you to use your Espanol. Duolingo. Candelilla. Candelilla.
Candelilla.
I know it depends on the region, right? Whether it's ya or ja. I'm going to Costa Rica on Saturday, and I haven't been in years, and I'm wondering if I'll get to speak Spanish. I hope I get to speak Spanish. Well, people there might not want me to speak Spanish because it's really rusty, but I would like to. So what I was going to say was St. John's wort is a beautiful summer solstice flower. It usually blooms around solstice. It's in the meadows. It's yellow. It's a great plant for seasonal affective issues because it really brings joy. But it's a wonderful plant externally for nerve pain and burns, especially burns. And when you make an oil out of it, the active constituent turns the oil red. So it's a really, really fun one to work with. So if you come across St. John's wort, please try making an oil out of it and seeing what happens. You could do like the top, just the flowers make it really red, but you can take like the top 6 inches of the plant and use that, and it will be equally medicinal. But if you have the patience and you could do a small jar like this, you can do just the blossoms and it will be bright red. And you could do that in olive oil or coconut oil. So yeah, there's so many different ways. And if you wanted to do another fun kitchen one, you could do some thyme, like think of some of those Mediterranean herbs and put them with the olive oil. You could do your thyme or oregano and make an oil. And then that could be a really nice base for a salad dressing. Yes, Maria, it would be good for shingles, St. John's wort oil. It would be great for that. Exactly. So we have about 5 minutes for questions. So ask me your herbal questions about oils, about anything really. Maria, yes, and yes.
What does St. John's wort have to do with summer solstice?
It always blooms at summer solstice. So everybody, and the name St. John's wort, the festival of St. John was like in, I'm not sure what culture that is, what cultural tradition, but St. John's Day is the solstice. So it's actually named for the solstice.
I have a question. You said coconut oil would not be stable enough to make a balm. Do you just mean because it changes with the temperature, so you would have to keep it refrigerated?
Yeah.
Use it like that?
Yes.
So you could kind of make like a workaround balm that way.
You totally could. You could do, because you could make your oil and then you could just strain out the herbs and then you could put it in the refrigerator and you can use it as a salve, and then it would like go on the skin and kind of get more liquidy and absorbed. It would just be hard to travel with unless you were in the Arctic.
Or you could move to Colorado where it snows all the time.
But it's not. It's going to be like 70 tomorrow, right?
crazy.
Honestly, we can only hope. I understand I'm a mountaineer and I'm looking forward to being in the mountains for like 6 weeks of snow, but I have to say today I cried. I'm so over it. I need like just a couple of days of sunshine in a row. Do you know that feeling where you're just like, oh dear God.
Yeah, it's like you're a solar battery that needs charging. It's like,
I need charging.
Yeah.
Sorry, Allison Joy. I did not mean to interrupt you.
I was also just going to ask, do you recommend only using one plant at a time, or could I like do basil, oregano, rosemary together in like a kind of herbal mixture oil?
I'd say you could experiment. The basil is going to have, if you think about those plants, the rosemary is the woodiest, which is good. That's a good thing for oil because it's less likely to turn it. The basil's really juicy.
Okay.
So you could dry it a little. I would wilt it overnight or something first. Get as much moisture
Just
out.
overnight, dry your fresh herbs. That's it.
No, I'm just saying wilting it. I mean, ideally drying it, you would like either let it dry for like a week out on the counter, or you'd put it in a food dehydrator or something for a couple hours.
I usually let them dry just on the counter.
Yeah, so you do that and then it would be perfect for oil. And I mean, for some reason I haven't done that where I've done a multiple mixture, but when I was talking about the salad dressing idea and that Mediterranean oil, like that came into my mind that I want to try that. So we should both try it and we can tell each other how it works.
Yeah, I wasn't even thinking about cooking oils until you brought that up. And now I'm like, because I have this huge citronella bush outside. So I was like, ooh, maybe I can harvest my citronella and finally make my own insecticide.
Yeah, and you know what else you can do? I know I'm getting on a tangent, and I know, Julia, you have a question too. But I've done a bug spray where like I made a catnip tincture because that's really good for bugs too. So I steeped it in alcohol and then I cut it with distilled water in a spray bottle and use that. So you could make a citronella tincture with like vodka.
That's what my next question is. Do you recommend with citronella more a tincture or an oil?
I would probably do the oil.
You would?
Unless you wanted a citronella, like you'd be rubbing oily citronella on you or turning it into a salve. A salve might work. I feel like I'd rather have a spritz of it than have the oil on me.
But it's pretty much the same effect.
I've never seen an oil-based bug spray.
Yeah, I mean, I guess some of them are greasy, but I don't know if they're oil-based.
Yeah. I mean, I'm not saying don't try it. I'm definitely not saying that. I just have no experience with it, but I do have experience with the alcohol base.
I have taken a tincture class in the past too, so I'm ready.
You're good to go. All right, we'll have a meetup in the summer again. We'll see what everybody's done, right? We'll put that on the books. Julia, did you have a question? I see the hand emoji. I'm looking at the chat if you want to ask it there or
you're on mute in case you haven't.
Yeah, you are on mute.
Oh, sorry. Where do you get the dried herbs from?
Well, there's 2 places I recommend. There's probably a lot of places. You might even have a local herb store, but Jean's Greens is where I got this jojoba oil from. They're online and they're in New York, and it's
How do you spell it?
Jeans Greens. So that's one place that you can order from. And then another big place is Mountain Rose Herbs. That's out west in California. But even if you go on Etsy, you'll find so many different options.
Do they tell like the meaning of the plant, of the herb, like what they do and stuff like that?
I don't know. You might need to do like a little website or book or something to do that. I mean, obviously you can use the internet too to search. I don't know how they do it on their website. You have to look on their website and see. Sometimes they do say like good for this or good for that. Is there a particular thing you're looking for, or you just kind of want to have all the options?
I want to have all the options.
That's what I thought. Yeah, I'm trying to think of a good book too. I mean, start with some
I
rosemary.
can look it up online. I can look them up online. Yeah.
Yeah, but I'm going to give you a hint to start with Rosemary Gladstar. She's awesome. Her last name is Gladstar. And she's kind of like the fairy godmother of traditional Western herbalism, which is a medley because we don't have, like, we have such a cultural melting pot in America. So, like, if you look in China, there's traditional Chinese medicine, and you look in India, there's Ayurveda. But what we have is a mix of so much. And she's kind of been on the forefront of bringing that forward. So I really like her as a starting place, Julia.
So she has a book, or she has what?
She has tons of books, and she has a website. If you put her name into your search engine, it will bring you places.
Okay. Thank you.
You're welcome. All right, my dears. Oh, one question more.
Just a quick question in regards to, excuse me, olive oil. What properties of olive oil do you like as far as using it as a carrier?
Well, it's so nutritious. It's got good quality fat, and you can get nice organic, and it's temperature stable, and it's very stable. It's not going to go rancid like some other oils might. So it's got a lot going for it. And it's kind of just been the traditional use. I'm cracking up for some reason.
I just love thinking about olive oil having a lot going for it. Like, thank God somebody around here does. It's amazing. Allison Joy and olive oil has like a lot going for it. It's just so cute.
Olive oil is killing me.
What did you say? I missed that. What's killing you?
No, we're
The
saying
olive oil.
me compared to olive oil. Olive oil is
Oh, yeah. You're just like the sexy bottle of olive oil.
We always knew that. Could I ask one quick question?
Yes, because I do really like this bottle. Isn't it cool? I ordered it from Thrive, and I was like, this is the prettiest olive oil bottle that I have ever gotten.
It's so beautiful. What about if you wanted to do something with sage, like, like snipping sage, could you put it into oil?
like the dried sage, you mean? Like this.
Well, we have a lot of fresh sage. So I was thinking, like, could I do kind of like what you did with the rose petals, but with sage?
Yeah, you can do this with anything. Absolutely. Yeah, just keep an eye on it. Keep it in a dark place, but check on it every couple of days. You want to make sure that the plant matter is below the liquid, because if it's sticking out, then you're going to get mold. So you can use a chopstick or a clean utensil, push it down. And then after 4 weeks, you just strain it. Anything that you want. What did you say?
Is it always 4 weeks?
So, I mean, I would say 4 to 6, but if it's really warm where you are, it could be 3. Smell it. You can get, like, if it's something you're going to be eating, you can get a little spoon out and taste it and see if you like the flavor, if you want it to be stronger. You just kind of need to let your senses guide the way.
And the final question is, how can I order more rose elixir, because I cannot live without it?
You can email me. So
I will.
yes. And for those of you who do not have my email, it's Ashley@dreamkeeperbotanicals.com. And that is also my website, is dreamkeeperbotanicals.com. So if you want to read more about herbs and get some recipes, there's stuff over there for you to check out. Thanks.
And if you want to subscribe to the best newsletter ever.
The best, most infrequent newsletter.
That's why it's the best.
You know, I really have something that I want to say when it comes into your inbox. I try for seasonal, so.
We're all learning from you. Ashley, thank you so much.
Oh, my pleasure. Thank you all for being here. You were such a fun group. You made my night.
I hope y'all come and enjoy a dance party with DJ Lady Owl later tonight.
What time is that, Karuna?
It's at 8 Central, which I think is 9 Eastern and 7 Mountain.
You did that really well.
Bruna, are you doing meditation at 8 and then, or at the top of the hour?
Yes.
And then...
Well, So Maria has a little addendum. So it's meditation at 8. It'll probably be 8 to 8:15, and then we'll dance.
That is
So
awesome.
in an hour and a half, no matter where you are, it's an hour and a half from now.
I love it. I'm gonna try my very best. I might be melted by then, but
Just come for one song.
okay.
Okay, love y'all.
Love you. Bye.
Thanks for teaching.
My pleasure. Good night.
Thank you.